Hi friends, it's Amy. Welcome to my bookish life. Today I want to go over the 13 books that I read in the month of November. So let's get to it. All right, so in the month of November, I read 13 books for a total of 4,363 pages, which came out to about 145.43 pages per day and 335.62 pages per book. I gave an average star rating of 4.27, a little bit lower. My range of ratings went from 2.5 to 5. I read 8 books for an adult audience, 2 for YA audience, and 3 for a middle grade audience. And the format that I consume these books in: 6 physical books, 3 digital books, and 7 audiobooks. 9 of them were fiction, 4 of them were nonfiction, 7 I owned, and 6 I borrowed. 1 of these books was an ARC, and 1 of these books was a book of the month. It was a great reading month. I really enjoyed a lot of what I read. I did not, however, read a lot of the books that I wanted to read, which was a little bit upsetting, but it is what it is. I didn't get as much reading in this month. So, I have a lot of books in my November TBR that carried over into my December TBR. I did not finish The Lost Girls of Willowbrook for Historathon. I'm really upset about that because I really want to read that book. It's going to break my heart, and I put it off a lot. I also didn't read On the Banks of Plum Creek with Rainey. We just didn't get to it, and I didn't get to Stellar Loon with Krista. Both of those buddy reads are going to happen at some point. It just didn't happen in November. It's really okay. I'm going to be okay with it. However, I did manage to complete my amazing TBR. I had 3 moves to get back to home base in my TBR game. My first move, I needed a middle grade audiobook, and I listened to Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan. My second move, my prompt was a subscription service middle grade. I read The Marvelers by Donnell Clayton. And my third move was a buddy read. And I did have one buddy read last month, and that was The Wedding Dress Sewing Circle that I read with my friends Destiny and Jamie. So, win all the way. Alas, I did not complete my Tic Tac TBR to the fullest. I did not read a banned book last month. However, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tic-tac-toes, which I think is pretty good. You know, I'm not mad about that. So, anyway. So there you go. The first book that I finished in November was The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osman. This is the 3rd book, the final book that is actually available right now. More is coming in the Thursday Murder Club series. These books take place in a retirement village. I absolutely love them. They are full of quirky humor and great detective work, and I just love them. In this one, we have a local newsman who comes to the Thursday Murder Club, and he wants help in solving this mystery this murder that took place, I think 10 years ago, if I remember right. And yeah, it's great. Elizabeth's past comes back to haunt her again, because that's all her past does, really. Seriously, it's crazy, but also awesome at the same time. There's really this kill or be killed dilemma involved, and it's just a lot of fun. I really love this series. I love the characters. I think they're quirky and adorable and fun, and I just really look forward to every installment of this series. So definitely a series that I'm going to read more as more come out. The next book that I finished was The Pumpkin and the Patch by Jennifer Peel, and this book is this beautiful little fall romance that I totally loved, but kept on getting distracted by other books that I needed to read for other stuff that was happening. So it took me a long time to read. It's just because I was trying to read too many books at once. And that's on me, not on the author. So this was so cute. Josie is the main character. She is a second grade teacher at like this elite school. She's very in demand as a teacher. And one day, the man that she had a crush on in high school enrolls his daughter at the school. She is in her class, and despite all the rules about fraternization with the parents, Josie feels all those feelings coming back. There's a whole side plot about a story that she wrote when she was younger about this man being a pirate, and it's just so much fun. I loved how she wrote Josie as a teacher. I think that a lot of times it's really difficult for people to write teachers well. And I think anybody in their profession kind of feels that way about somebody writing their profession. It's so hard to get all those nuances and all of the intricateness of the job. But the way that she writes about Josie feeling that tug between her students and her love of her students and the love of her job and the love of wanting to have a personal life, I just thought was so real and so authentic. And I really appreciated that as a teacher, because I just feel like it's tough. And it's really hard to find that balance. So I just thought it was really cool. And I really felt like Jennifer Peel got it in some way. I don't know how, but she did. She totally did. It's a really cute, clean romance. I really liked it. It's so cute. There's a companion novel by Becky Monson, who is actually the one that introduced me to the writings of Jennifer Peel, and I haven't gotten to that one yet, and it's called Pumpkin Spice and Not So Nice. I kind of still want to read it this year, but I don't know that I will, because I'm so looking forward to being more immersed into Christmas and holiday. I don't know that I'm going to get to it this year. The next book that I finished was my first nonfiction, and it was Shifting the Balance by Jan Burkins and Carrie Yates. And this was a professional development book for me. It was a read-along that I was doing with some other educational professionals in the Reading Teacher Association that I belong to. And it was really interesting. It brought balanced literacy and combined it with the science of reading, which the science of reading is like the brand new, fancy, new-spangled way of thinking in the literacy community. And balanced literacy has kind of been the carrier of the torch, if you will, for the longest time. And really, these two different ways of thinking really go hand in hand according to Shifting the Balance. And a lot of what they said in this book made a ton of sense. This book was really geared toward teachers of kindergarten through second grade, and that is not me, but I definitely found some information very intriguing and thought-provoking. I gave this book to the first grade teacher at my school, and she consumed it in about 2 days. I felt like a lot of their ideas were practical, and a lot of the things that they said were very easily implemented in a classroom. The next book that I finished was The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the third and final book in the Inheritance Game trilogy. It's fast, twisty. I really liked it. It was a good conclusion, I felt. I don't know if it was my favorite one in the series. I really loved the Inheritance Games, and I just love how it came together. And there were definitely parts of this book that I loved as well. Can't talk a whole lot about them because spoilers, and I don't want to do that. But it just... there were definitely things that I loved about it. Definitely things that I thought were a little bit weaker. But I highly recommend this series as a whole. I liked it. I thought it was great. The next book that I finished was The Wedding Dress Sewing Circle by Jennifer Ryan. This book is super character driven. I want to say that right off the bat. I loved this book. I read it with Jamie and Destiny, as I said, as a buddy read. It was one of my Book of the Month books. It came highly recommended. I just really was looking forward to it as a post-World War II, depths of World War II kind of time period. It's very fascinating to think about rationing and all of those things. Definitely has a great story. And one thing that I loved about this, there wasn't two timelines, as I love dual timelines. However, there was an more seasoned character who was going through a love story, and then there were younger characters that were going through love stories. I really loved seeing that parallel because you don't always see that a lot in books where you can have like a more mature romance, and by mature I mean 45, like but at this time, like, she was just completely considered to just be a spinster. So, like, I mean, I just really loved it. There's not a ton of action, as I said. It's very character driven, but I loved the characters. It was so cool to see them grow and develop, and I just thought they were great. I really did. I cannot for the life of me think of their names right now. It was good. It was really great. I loved it. It was so... I really liked it. I liked it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. But can I just say, Jamie and Destiny, these sneaky ladies both said, oh, there's no way I'm going to finish tonight. I'm going to stop at this chapter. I stopped at that chapter, and guess what? They both finished the book. But no joke, highly recommend buddy reading with both of these ladies. They're wonderful. All right. The Silent Patient is the next book that I read. This is by Alice. This is by Alex Michaelides. I thought this book was such a trip. I really enjoyed it. I don't actually know what my rating is. I did write something down. I don't know if that's really where I stand. I think I landed on 4 stars. I think that's what I ended up writing down. But man, there were times that I hated this book, but then there were times that I loved this book, and it's so fun. It is so fun. Oh, and man, it's so trippy. So trippy. And if I could do like a whole spoilery vlog on the nuances of this book, I mean, I wouldn't be able to at this point because it's been a while since I read it. However, there are definitely some spoilery things I could say right now. I really liked how it all came together. I liked how the story came together. And honestly, I loved the trip. It was such a wild ride. Such a wild ride. And I really liked the conversation that my book club had about it. So it was what I would call a win all the way around. My sister, texted me when she finished, and her vote was, well, that sucked. So if you're wondering what my sister thought, she didn't like it. Anyway, there are a ton of triggers in this book. It is a thriller. The next book that I finished was Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan, and this book is about Willow Chance. Willow was adopted by this wonderful couple, and this wonderful couple then dies. But Willow, who has a beautifully divergent mind, finds this surrogate family that is just so beautiful and so wonderful, and I really, really enjoyed reading it. I was thrown off at first because it's all told in a third person limited. So you see like different perspectives, but you see Willow Chance's perspective the most. But you also see adult perspectives, and that's so strange in a middle grade book. I was not expecting it. It threw me off for a little bit, but then it absolutely made sense. And you learn things about Willow's life that Willow never learns in the book, and that I kind of didn't like. So I gave it 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. I really am excited to read more from Holly Goldberg Sloan. I think that the writing was beautiful. I loved her storytelling. I loved her representation. There was absolutely a lot to love about this book. However, it's a lot for a middle grade. It's a heavy middle grade book. So do with that what you will. The next book that I read was my second nonfiction, and that was Fostering Resilient Learners by Kristin Van Marter and Kristin Van Marter Souers and Pete Hall. This book I found to be so interesting. It explores adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, as they're called, adverse childhood experiences. And these are things that adversely affect how a child grows and develops mentally, spiritually, physically, the whole gambit. It actually can be a little scary to think about all of the ways that there are to adversely affect the development of a child. However, it was really an empowering book in how educators, parents, and other loving adults can help and guide these students in a way that helps them thrive despite the adverse childhood experiences that they may have. It was just really cool to have some insight into how to best serve anyone, children, adult alike, in being able to overcome these instances. And I found the first half of the book to be more productive than the second half of the book. However, I just really enjoyed it. Definitely geared toward educators, hence the learners part. However, I do think actually that there are a lot of things that could be applied to parents and just like adults in general. The next book that I finished was The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. And oh my gosh, this woman, she writes so well. I think this might be my favorite from her. I have read The Sundown Motel, The Book of Cold Cases, and now The Broken Girls. I think The Broken Girls might be my favorite, which I don't know. I think it's a toss up between the book of Cold Cases and Broken Girls. And honestly, the Sundown Motel was the first one I read, and I loved that thing. So 3 books, 5 stars. Just I loved it. This took place. One of the timelines took place in a boarding school in 1950, Idlewild Hall, and girls were sent there when they were kind of, became too much for their parents to handle, kind of thing. And you get this like deep dive into the characters of these 4 girls who room together. Skip ahead to 2014. That was in the 1950s. Skip ahead to 2014, and you have Fiona. Fiona's sister was killed 20 years ago. So in 1994, she was found on the Idlewild grounds. And something has never felt right about the case, even though somebody has been tried and is in prison for her sister's murder. She just has never felt like it was fully resolved. Chaos ensues. I just love it. It was so good. It was so good. I read it for the Dark Academia prompt for Silent Book Club, and I don't know how much it fits with Dark Academia, but I kind of think it does because it takes place at a school, and yeah. I went with it. I went with it. And I'm really glad that I read it. So I don't feel guilty about it at all if it's not really considered Dark Academia. So I would love to know if you would consider The Broken Girls Dark Academia or not. I have read other Dark Academia books this year. So if it doesn't count, I've covered the prompt. I would love to know your thoughts down below. The next book that I finished was The Tryout by Christina Soontornvat. This is the author of All 13. This is a nonfiction graphic memoir. Holy cow, graphic memoirs are so good. They're so good. Where have these been all my life? It's such a great way to learn about somebody. To like see a representation of their memory, of the picture in their mind on the paper. Granted, it's drawn by somebody else, but still, so good. It tells a story of Christina and her family moving to Texas, and she feels very out of place. And she feels like if she could just be popular, she wouldn't stand out so much as being different from everybody else. And she feels that the best way to do that is to try out for the cheerleading team because they wear the same outfits on game days. And so she tries out for cheerleading, and it just goes through all of the practice she did, and it's just a lot of fun. I originally got this as a digital copy through Scholastic because I'm a Red Apple teacher and they give you like access to books, and I was able to read it on my computer, and I definitely went right on Scholastic and I bought the book for myself for my classroom, and I don't feel bad about it. It is a great addition to my classroom library. It is by an award-winning author, and it's a great story. It talks a lot about inclusion. It talks about forgiveness. It talks about racism and prejudices and bullying and crazy policies that were, alive back in the day at some schools. And it was a lot of fun to read, and it was really informational, and I really liked it. The next book that I finished was Disconnected Kids by Dr. Robert Melillo. And this was my least favorite book of the month. I gave it 2.5 stars. Here's the deal. Dr. Robert Melillo is the designer and facilitator of a program called Brain Balance. And one thing that I didn't fully know going into this book was that it was a deep dive into how the brain works, but also a workbook of sorts on how to work through the Brain Balance program, which isn't really what I was interested in. What I was interested in is the facts, and I really did find a lot of facts. There was a lot of great information in this book that I really appreciated, but it really got bogged down by the constant mentions of the Brain Balance program and how that works. A good portion of this book was not really relatable. It was not really useful to me in my current situation, and it just wasn't necessarily something that I was 100% into. I am not in any way saying that the Brain Balance program doesn't work. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that. I don't know. The book makes a great case for it. However, the book's kind of biased towards the program. And I mean, I get it because, it's his livelihood. There was a lot of interesting information that absolutely was worth the read. And it's going to be a book that I kind of keep on my shelf so I can reference back to, because there was a lot of great information in there. I just feel like there was a lot of the idea that everybody needs to be fixed. Like, it felt so much like he was saying, if this happens too early, you're in trouble. If it happens too late, you're in trouble. There's this one little sweet spot. And then 10 chapters later, he says, but remember, every kid is an individual. It kind of negated the fact that, it negated the whole ideology that there are multiple intelligences. And some people are better at one thing than they are at another thing. And it kind of made it sound like everybody was supposed to be the same amount of smart in everything. And I just couldn't get behind that. That is not to say that he had nothing of interest or of value to say, because he absolutely did. And I think there was a lot of interesting things in it. The next book that I read was The Marvelers by Danielle Clayton. This book is for the Nevermore readers out there. This book is for the Amari and the Night Brothers readers. This book is a lot of fun. So it takes place in kind of an alternate universe where there are regular everyday people, but then there's also this race of people called the Marvelers, and they kind of live among society, but also, kind of on their own and in the sky. And then there are conjurers, and the conjurers have marvelous abilities, but they've kind of been shunned by the Marveler community. And it is to the great dismay of a lot of Marvelers that the very first conjurer has been accepted into the school that they regard so very highly. And that girl is Ella Durand. It has a lot of metaphor and a lot of illusion in it. It's just kind of like a rolling metaphor for inclusion and acceptance and forgiveness. It's just kind of, it's kind of a great read. I really enjoyed it. I loved the world that Danielle Clayton created. I just found it fascinating and beautiful. I loved how elements of different cultures were brought in to the different societies that were there. I loved how it explored prejudices in an approachable way, and I just really enjoyed the magic of the story as a whole. It was so much fun, and I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad that I read it. And then the last book that I read to wrap up my November was 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. This book just came out. I had this as an ARC from NetGalley because I loved A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I really just thought it would be a lot of fun to read this standalone book from her. Now, in this book, we have 6 friends who are in an RV driving towards spring break, and they get stranded along the way. And what we know is that 5 of them will survive. It's very suspenseful. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. You will read it so fast, and then you will want to go back and you will want to figure out all of the nuances that are in the story. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great story. It was a wild ride, and there was a lot that I liked about it. I did, however, talk to a friend about the book shortly thereafter, and she hated it with a passion, like the passion of 1,000 suns. She hated it, and what she said made a lot of sense. And it really made me kind of question if I really did like this book as much as I did, or if it was just that propulsive. It is propulsive, it's suspenseful, and I really think that it has an audience. And honestly, I think I might be it. Like, I really did like it a lot. It was a very difficult book to read in light of all of the gun violence in America right now and all of the controversy around it and things like that. The ending was not my favorite. However, there were a lot of twists, a lot of turns, and I was like on the ride and there for the whole time. It's almost like when you're getting on a roller coaster and you're so excited for it, and you get on the roller coaster and the whole time you're on it, you're like, this is great. And then you get off the roller coaster and you like fall flat on your face because you like lost all your balance. That's kind of how I felt with this book. Because I didn't like that feeling at the end. I felt a little icky. But I really liked the road getting there. I might just be crazy. It's possible. But I liked it. So that's it. That is the 13 books that I read in the month of November. It was a pretty small month for me in terms of numbers, but in terms of quality, I would say that it was pretty good. Most of the books that I read were 4 and 5 stars, and I can't really complain about that. I really need to, I lost a lot of focus. I was in kind of a slump at the beginning of November, and I kind of just stuck around. I feel like I started reading a ton of books, and I just didn't have any time to finish all of them. All right, so here my first superlative is best side character. Secondary character, oh my goodness. That is... I think I have to go with the Marvelers. The main character is Ella Durant. I feel like I didn't say that. I did. Okay, so Ella is the main character, and she's great. She is a great character. I really liked her. But she has 2 friends at the Arcanum Training Institute, and their names are Jason and Bridget, and they are great characters. They're just great. It was so fun to meet them in terms of, just their friendship and things like that. Like, it was great. All right. This superlative is scariest. And my goodness, I think that's kind of a toss-up between 5 Survive and The Silent Patient. Honestly, both of these books took me on a trip. Both of these books would be very polarizing. And to be completely honest, I would not want to spend a day in either one of them because, holy cow, there's a lot. Broken Girls, also definitely scary, but in more of a, I don't know, like, see, Broken Girls, I wouldn't consider, like, I wasn't scared reading it. Like, I was in it and I was enthralled and I loved it, but I just wasn't like, I wasn't scared, you know? I don't know. It was weird. So anyway, I think the scariest was The Silent Patient and Five Survive. I think. You can throw Broken Girls in there too. And third and final, most unique. Oh gosh. Let's see. I think as a whole, The Bullet That Missed, the Thursday Murder Club series, I think is unique in that it looks at these older Jessica Fletcher type characters and brings their stories more to light. And that in itself, I think, is unique as a premise. The disability representation of Willow and her divergent mind was definitely unique in how it was portrayed, how it was, how the family came together, and I really liked that. And the Wedding Dress Sewing Circle was unique in a way where these girls in the 50s, two being younger in their 20s, one being older in her 40-ish, 40, 50-ish, and being able to follow their dreams and their passions and love. And there was a uniqueness to that story and how the story was told in a way that it almost felt like it was a dual timeline, but it wasn't, kind of thing. And yeah, that one was unique as well. Yeah. Do you want to do another one? I want to do another one. Let's do it. Let's just do it. If it's coziest mystery, we're going to have a problem with that because most informative. This is a great one to have for nonfiction November. I think the most informative one was of the four that I read, the four nonfiction that I read. I think the most informative for me was Fostering Resilient Learners. And I think that it had the most application to, I don't want to say really to my daily life. My students are very blessed that they don't have a ton of adverse childhood experiences. However, they have some. I mean, there's definitely stuff that they have to deal with. I mean, 2 years ago, that was a big adverse childhood experience, okay? Like, we're still dealing with the aftermaths of that thing. So I think in terms of my teaching, the one that definitely is the most directly related to my teaching is Fostering Resilient Learners, just because things that we don't even think about being traumatic are actually traumatic to some of our students. And I think that sometimes we forget about that. So definitely, I think that one was the most informative. I think I read a lot of informative books. Even my fiction books were pretty informative in some ways. Counting by 7, I learned a lot about how the brain can work, and there was a lot of a deep dive into how grief can manifest in students. It's kind of interesting that I read Fostering Resilient Learners and Counting by Sevens in the same month. So it was very serendipitous, I would say. So yeah, anyway, I enjoyed my reading month. I thought it was a good one. So I would love to know if you've heard of any of these books, if you've read any of these books. I'd love to know what you think. I especially would love to hear your thoughts on Five Survive if you have read that, because I don't know how I feel now. After talking to one of my Instagram friends, I'm not sure exactly how I feel, but I would love to talk to any of you about it or any of these other books. So let me know down in the comments. I love to chat with you. I love chatting with you. It's just brightens my day. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more from me, I would love it if you would subscribe. I hope you're finding something wonderful to read, and until next time, happy reading. Bye.